Welcome and thank you for joining today's Comprehensive Enterprise and B2B Integration Suites, a Solution for Your Organization webinar. Today's webinar is hosted by Remedy Electronic Commerce Group in partnership with IBM and IBM's B2B Industry Solutions Group. My name is Scott Story. I'm a B2B Integration Software and Services Account Manager for Remedy Electronic Commerce Group. The presentation will run close to 60 minutes. All lines will be muted. Please submit text questions to the organizer anytime during the GoToWebinar question submission box. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will answer any submitted questions. For those of you not familiar with Remedy, I'd like to provide a brief company overview before we get started. Remedy Electronic Commerce Group is an IBM premier business partner with business focus on B2B integration, EDI, commerce, EAI, and managed file transfer solutions. Founded in 1994, Remedy has had a long partnership with Sterling Commerce to provide preferred B2B and MFT design, implementation, and configuration services. As a premier business partner with IBM, Remedy offers software resale, software renewals, upgrades, professional services, and direct contract to hire placement. Remedy is located in Columbus, Ohio, and services North America through our national network of expert integration professionals and IBM partnership. My contact information will be available at the end of this presentation. I'd like to introduce today's presenters, Brad Lotz and Herb Saxon. President and co-founder of Remedy, Brad Lotz has 17 years of experience with software and professional services, and overall 23 years of EDI, B2B, and MFT across multiple industries. Herb Saxon is a top-level Remedy B2B integrator consultant with a total of 22 years EDI, B2B, and MFT experience, 19 years of experience with software and professional services, and a team member with Sterling Commerce's GIS and SI launch teams. At this time, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Brad Lotz.
Thank you, Scott, for the introductions and opening our webinar today. Welcome to all the attendees who were able to make it, as well as those who will be listening to the replay of this session. As a side note, this session will be available in the video section of our site in about 1 week's time. If you'd like to revisit the material covered today or refer it to others within your organization. We have a lot of material to cover, and we want this session to be as valuable as possible. So as Scott mentioned, lines will be muted. But please submit your questions to the organizer via the chat window on your screen as they come up, and we'll address these in the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Based on timelines, if we're not able to get to all of your questions today, we will outline questions along with answers and provide this to the group of attendees today in a follow-up email. So our topic on tap for today is Comprehensive Enterprise and B2B Integration Suites, a solution for your organization. Components of this presentation will include the research behind Enterprise and B2B Integration Suites, which includes the various sources of information that lead us to believe an integration suite approach to integration is a good idea. Overview of the Enterprise and B2B Integration Suites, addressing the possible components that can exist within an integration suite and the value in using an integration suite approach to your integrations. Then we'll look at IBM Sterling EDI standalone solutions. And this section will involve a brief look into the IBM EDI-specific standalone solutions and where they continue to make some sense in some organizations. And we'll provide some areas of contrast against our next section of the presentation, which would be IBM Sterling B2B Integration Suite Solutions, where we'll look at the IBM Integration Suite and its various components. And finally, we'll wrap up with Q&A addressing questions submitted throughout the session. I would also mention in today's webinar complements an MFT webinar that we did in April. That is available for replay at Remedy, that's remedi.com videos /videos in the video section of our site. While MFT is addressed in this presentation, this recorded session outlines the role of MFT in a comprehensive integration suite, and it provides a deeper dive into the host of the IBM solutions than we'll have time for in today's session. First of all, we'll look at the research behind enterprise and B2B integration suites. In Remedy's service to clients and through market observations and our study of integration competency centers and lean integration, it's obvious there's a slow but steady, in some instances just steady, migration from multiple standalone solutions in organizations for MFT, B2B, and enterprise integration, and a move from those standalone solutions to a comprehensive integration suite approach. These observations, of course, are not just ours, but that of IBM and formerly Sterling Commerce, who have their own body of work on the matter, including integration suite products, obviously offered to the public, as well as future product roadmaps for those products, as well as their observations and success stories, and research, and a lot of other thought pieces around integration. Additionally, research from Gartner and Forrester and other similar firms support the value and the growing popularity of integration suites. I'd list here two such pieces that we've come to rely on in our understanding of integration suites and our involvement with them, and I guess the research pieces point to the future of these suites in organizations. In particular, market trends. Multi-enterprise B2B infrastructure market worldwide, 2009 through 2014 is a research piece from Gartner from July 2010. The second item that we come to rely upon in the way of research, in addition to the many that exist out there, is the value of a comprehensive integration solution from Forrester Consulting, March 2009 publication. These pieces will be referenced in a few points throughout this presentation. Looking at an overview of enterprise and B2B integration suites. So why integration suites? Companies are facing increasing complexity in integration with various business partners and systems, and this is due to a variety of factors, including the global competitive landscape, the global economic landscape, global supply chains, mergers and acquisitions, government oversight and regulation, and the multiple siloed solutions that have come to be scattered throughout organizations. The combined result is integration-oriented challenges, some of which are included in the center of the slides. Varying protocols, visibility challenges, data format, differences from partner or party to another, integration technologies and the variants of them. So those are just a few of the challenges that the global marketplace has placed on organizations. Given the complexity that has evolved through the globalization and such that I just spoke of, companies struggle with integration, and they admit this according to some of the survey results that we have here. A slide that provides some statistics sources quoted at the bottom, additionally from IBM. But some of these quotes are, obviously, as you can see, 68% of execs report that integration challenges have impeded their collaborative relationships with partners. And some of those challenges, I guess we conclude, are integration tool related. 70% of supply chain officers report that lack of visibility has had a significant impact on their supply chains. About one year's time ago or so, think back to the earthquakes in Japan and some of the Arab Spring events that impacted supply chains globally. And then 50+% of organizations rely on custom-built in-house integration solutions that are expensive and inflexible. The concept of a continual build-out of in-house integration tools to accommodate the changing world involving protocols, data formats, standards, visibility, and all the governance challenges that evolve today. Are maintaining that in-house is, I guess, somewhat incomprehensible from those here at Remedy. So the previous slide looked at a few factors driving organizations to consider a different approach to integration. Referencing that Gartner piece referenced earlier, Gartner in their research outlined factors they believe to be driving software firms in their development of enterprise and B2B integration suites. And a few will be listed on this slide and the following. A forecasted doubling of integration traffic from 2010 to 2014. This is EDI, it's proprietary files, drawings, financial transactions, etc. And I'm sure you've heard a lot from a lot of different places about the big data that's being generated within organizations. Clearly, a portion of this big data needs to be transmitted, and what we suspect is that's where some of the resulting transmission growth is occurring from, or is forecasted. The inability or ability of aging single-purpose tools to keep up with transactional growth, protocol, and standards, kind of an area that we've spoken through too briefly already. Also, the service-oriented architecture design of new integration software and services that provide for more rapid integration development and deployment in a complex world. Some of the other items driving software development is the build-out of both middleware tool and middleware tool developers, kind of retrofitting or building out their tools with B2B capabilities. Similarly, B2B integration tool providers building out middleware capabilities within with their products. And then, these are each, building out from their legacy competitive space to the others, in order to maintain and expand their footprint within their installed base. In addition, both of these parties are expanding managed file transfer capabilities in order to be more of a one-stop shop in their tool offering. Finally, security, the audit and security and reliability required in the next generation of tools is driving software development to help clients reduce risk, reduce complexity, and satisfy compliance obligations. Gartner also identifies in some of their research 9 possible components that can be found in a multi-enterprise or B2B infrastructure, and these can exist either singularly or in some combination, as well as exist on-premise, off-premise, or using a hybrid approach. You can take a look at these. The first 3: cloud services integration as a service, service-oriented architecture, governance, and embedded multi-enterprise gateways. I list for the purposes of showing you the exhaustive list. The middle three, B2B integration, outsourcing, managed file transfer as a service for B2B, and traditional e-commerce integration as a service, will be touched on lightly in the course of our discussion about integration suites today, as well as a more deep dive into managed file transfer for B2B, standalone, multi-enterprise, and B2B gateways, and electronic data interchange translators. Will be germane to most of our conversation toward the second half of this presentation. The fastest growing infrastructure segments include managed file transfer as a service for B2B, and cloud services integration as a service, and B2B integration outsourcing. So those are one of the fastest growing components of this list. Meanwhile, the on-premise B2B gateway MFT and EDI segments really have the largest current transaction in terms of numbers of installations throughout organizations. Given our time limitations today, we'll largely be concentrating on bottom three of this list, as I'd mentioned, with some attention given to the middle three. So let's look at some of the commercial factors driving the comprehensive integration suite market, and this is more from a user perspective. Through Forrester's research, as I cited earlier in the presentation, they found from survey responses that the following items were driving the comprehensive integration suite market. Largely, current or dated technology is not effective in most circumstances or situations. Obviously, given some of the rapid changes going on in the world today. Multiple integration tools that are found throughout an organization are also a main problem. These integration tools came about by acquisition or through what I call in-a-pinch integration solutions offered by trading partners that might speed the connection process with that specific trading partner, but not necessarily provide value in connection to other trading partners. And then there's a certain lack of there's been a certain lack of governance over solution selection and implementation in large organizations that have different lines of business with different budgets, making their own decisions on integration technology. Another reason or a driver is the variety of integration tools causes delays in developing integration solutions. With a multiplicity of integration solutions within an organization, one's left to figure out, which integration tool do we use? Is it the appropriate integration tool? Is it as systems that it is integrating? Is that currently the right systems or the inappropriate systems? So that causes a lot of delays in decisions and development. MFT also plays a large role in the drive to a comprehensive integration solution. Integration solutions that define process and flow of data and data transformation is really nothing without giving or getting the data to or from some system or a division or a partner. Interestingly enough, enterprises, as Forrester understands it, enterprises understand the benefits of a comprehensive solution, and this is big. People understand the benefits of a comprehensive solution. They really now just need to go about demonstrating the ROI to get one in place. And the other thing is many firms are planning or have completed upgrades and changes to their environment. And I guess for the last 2 points in particular, we would imagine that that's what brought you here today. So to talk about the typical components in an integration suite. An integration suite usually consists of pre-integrated software modules that support a variety of functions. Not all of these have to be contained. Some of them, are optional or plug-in, if you will, but all developed to work in concert with one another as a suite of products. Enterprise application integration, application to application capabilities, of course. B2B integration that includes support for EDI, XML, and proprietary integration with partners. And of course, trading partner management and management dashboards to support the connectivity to partners both within and outside organizations. Business process management environments for process orchestration, integration, to signal data routing and alerts and more. And then managed file transfer component to securely trade messages with external partners or internal systems or divisions. And then lastly, model-driven application development features, which they provide for reusability in the course of your data transformations, your business process components, or your utilization of adapters. Outcomes that can be that are typically realized through the utilization of a comprehensive integration suite include some of the following. Obviously, there's increased effectiveness of integration efforts through the use of a single integration tool or integrated integration tools. Also resource training, cross-training, and the like. All those HR-related factors and people efforts are directed towards just one set of tools or connected tools, resulting in higher employee productivity. Application development productivity. Obviously, well, in Forrester's analysis, in their study of a variety of integration suite implementations, that research indicated that the embedded model-driven development capability was shown to reduce integration development time by as much as 40 to 60%. So that's big in a productivity capacity. Enhanced process optimization features. Well, through the analysis of a current state of processes and the modeling of future state of integration processes, needless process steps, one, are eliminated, and two, the future states processes can be assembled through a business process modeler through reusable BP components or frameworks that result in optimized processes that can be developed really quickly. Fast response to new business requests through BP frameworks and services and partner portals, exposing some self-service portions of things that would be done by an integration team, exposing that to the partners for self-service, and other components of integrations. Integrations can be developed more quickly, and they reduce time to revenue if you're dealing with customers, or if you're dealing with suppliers, the critical paths in your supply chain. Obviously, increased business and IT collaboration through a suite that offers closer collaboration and rapid development between businesses, IT, and trading partner personnel as we integrate with partners and systems. Additionally, provides real-time visibility into processes. The value of because the value of a process modeler, that you'll see later in the solution part of the presentation, the value of the process modeler is twofold. It provides, as you're developing the process, a pictorial representation of that process. It also instructs through generated code the execution of blocks of software that when strung together create a process. And when executed, you can view processes through a dashboard that provides information on process status, process results, any issues with that process, and metrics concerning the execution of the process. Through all the things stated thus far, lower support costs is fairly obvious. Scope of rapid development capabilities and maintenance activities that are concentrated just to a fewer number of and connected tools. Finally, a nice fallout is the ability to support merger and acquisition activity, particularly in the acquisition category. Integration suites allow connectivity through adapters to acquired entities' ERP packages, their messaging and communication systems. And then in a merger or a roll-up, their use is valuable in system conversion and consolidation, given the rapid integration process development capabilities and any-to-any data transformation for ETL activity. After all this talk, integration suites, comprehensive integration suites offer many benefits, but modern standalone EDI solutions still provide good vertical functionality and performance. Varying reasons, sometimes a holistic approach just isn't for everybody, and oftentimes it's because the time's just not right, or you already have EAI and your communications needs covered with point solutions, and they're already deployed in your environment. Budget constraints, if we're putting them in order of importance, that's probably another one of them that belongs up the ladder rather than present place or down, but budget constraints are an ever important hurdle. and workforce and skill set constraints also impede the consideration of integration suites at times, given their relative power and complexity. Departmental or organizational circumstances also have an impact in decentralized environments, decentralized IT environments in particular, in separate divisions. But I would also argue through an integration competency center approach, this argument is somewhat eliminated. But whatever your circumstance, at the end of the day, the challenge of an IT integrator is that we have to develop and deliver modern, cost-effective, scalable integration solutions that position our organizations in the best place to remain viable, relevant, particularly in the fiercely competitive world that we know today. So, kind of transitioning to integration suite solutions, particularly those from IBM Sterling. You have choices in IBM solution sets, on-premise, cloud, or the most common approach is hybrid. In the upper portion of this slide, you have cloud-related services available to an organization, chiefly but not exhaustively, the Sterling B2B collaboration network, which allows for secure, reliable connections to partners, and then the B2B integration services offering, which is cloud-based, single or multi-tenant integration. And we have some others that we can go to later as time permits. On the lower portion of this slide, you have on-premise IBM integration solutions, which we'll discuss in the following slides. Transformation engines and B2B gateways, where particularly we'll take a brief look at the standalone EDI solutions and standalone B2B integration suite solutions. We'll start before we hand off to Herb for the integration suite component. I'll briefly speak to the IBM Sterling Genran solutions, which are point solutions for EDI, and they're available regardless of your platform or operating system. These solutions operate independent, oftentimes, from your messaging, your enterprise application integration, and your data integration systems. And some of these products may or may not include, depending on which ones we're talking about, data communication and managed file transfer capability. Sterling Genran Server for Windows, Unix, and iSeries are versatile high-performance EDI solutions, and they're designed for the translation of inbound and outbound EDI files and messages. Whereas Sterling Genran Director and Director Pro for Windows is a simple SMB-oriented electronic data interchange solution that's made up of data translation, process control, and communication, wrapped up into a simplistic, more simplistic solution for small volumes of EDI data. Then Sterling Genran Basic for iSeries is data translation and management system. It allows you easily to communicate with your trading partners. Obviously works on a mainframe, supports high volume data transformation, high volume, but relatively simplistic data transformations and integration to your environment. So now I'll pass the presentation to Herb Saxon, where he'll talk about the IBM Sterling B2B standalone solutions, namely Sterling B2B Integrator, and there'll be some brief reference to companion products that work with B2B Integrator that can be part of an overall integration suite structure.
Thank you, Brad. Again, as Scott mentioned, my name is Herb Saxon, and I've been in this industry for over 20 years doing the kinds of day in, day out, nuts and bolts, hands-on type of work that it takes to implement these solutions. Scott, if you would, please, can you go back one slide real quick? What we talked about briefly here were the standalone solutions basically for EDI. And that's a lot of what my background is prior to getting into the integration suite product that we have now. Being on the launch team, I saw this thing, well, from its infancy and its first implementation at Colgate to, well, to today, to the product that it's become today, which is very mature. And these solutions that you see on the slide here do a very good job for a variety of companies, depending on their needs and the platforms they work on, to get EDI done and some amount of application integration. But what we're going to talk about here is, as Brad mentioned, a more holistic approach to the entire enterprise application integration, its need, and what this thing can do. Now, where Brad talked about why you may need it, what I'm going to do is talk more about what it is that it offers. So, having said that, can we go forward, please? And one more slide. Thank you. Let's talk about security first. In here, we're going to talk about things like authorization and authentication, your DMZ, the access to the system and various protocols that are used, as well as non-repudiation and signatures that are used for the digital signatures. Now, when you talk about security, one of the first things you need to address is people or systems accessing your integration system. So when we talk about this, we talk about the various layers, program layers, that allow you to control and manage the security of those transmissions over the internet, typically. And that's what we're talking about with things like SSL, SSH, and SFTP, etc. So SSL being a program layer between HTTP and TCP, it does just that. It manages that security when you do those transmissions over the internet. Whereas SSH is more of a Unix-based system for securing access to remote computers, very commonly used by network administrators who deal with the web. It uses digital certificates and passwords. In that process, it uses RSA public keys and the cryptography for that. Then there are also the issues of, as listed here, SMIME and PGP. SMIME, again, is another secure method for communication, but in this case it's geared toward email. Again, using RSA encryption. Then PGP is basically, well, just what it sounds like, pretty good privacy. It's a way to encrypt and decrypt email. So there's a variety of protocols and programs that are used to ensure the security of your system so that when you're communicating with your trading partners or they're communicating with you, it gives you the kind of control that allows you to meet your auditor's requirements and meet the needs of security in your corporation. Perimeter security. This talks about the DMZ here, where it talks about DMZ traversal. And there is a thing called the perimeter server that when you're doing specifically, I'm going to use an example, AS2 communication. And I'm going to use a couple of terms throughout this presentation, so if you hear me use the term GIS or Sterling Integrator, they're sort of interchangeable. They're just older names for the same thing. IBM's Sterling B2B Integration Suite then has at its core Sterling Integrator, and that product uses a perimeter server that isolates the Sterling Integrator system from the outside world, so that when you're communicating with the outside world can't see you, it can't get to you. There are a number of other methods and facilities used along with that, but that is one of the primary things, and that sits out on the DMZ, your firewall, if you will, that prevents the outside world from getting access directly into your system. So that's just another layer of security. There's also, of course, role-based access for the users who need to get into your system and deal with operations, maintenance, etc. We talked briefly about the concept of non-repudiation. Let's talk about that just briefly here with regard to AS2 and AS3. non-repudiation at its core is simply the fact that a definition of that might be the way that you assure that someone cannot deny a thing. So when you do a transmission to one of your trading partners, they can't deny that they received that transmission. Part of that process is the digital signature, the certificate that you use to sign that data and send it to them. By doing so, the person that signed it, this proves that they're the one who provided that signature. So that's part of that whole package of security features that allow AS2 and AS3 to be very secure communication protocols. AS2, of course, uses HTTP or HTTPS for more security, whereas AS1 was more about SMTP, or email. That was a precursor to AS2. Whereas now AS3 allows you to do much of what AS2 did. AS2 using HTTP, AS3 now uses FTP. And both of those are geared toward using the kinds of data that we typically think of in an EDI world, like XML data, or standard X12 EDI data, or EDIFACT EDI data. Next slide, please. There we go. What you can see on this slide is an example of what you would set up for your users to have access to the system. You would go in, your system administrator would set up each user with the user ID and password. They would put in various pieces of information, such as how long they're allowed to be on the system before it logs them out. It also assigns them a role and says what pieces of the system they're allowed to have access to. And that's what you kind of see at the bottom there, the default policy, and then you can custom tailor that for various users. Next slide, please. Now we talked about the access to the system from other systems. That was access to the system for users. We'll come back to the concept of security when it comes to access to that system from a communication system. Let's talk about that briefly now. Communications. In here we describe issues such as web services and various other protocols here, as well as Rosetta Net and IBM's Connect Direct products. So let's go through these a little bit at a time and sort of explain a little bit more about them. SOAP is basically a way for a program running in one kind of operating system like Windows to communicate with a program in the same operating system or even another operating system. And again, it uses HTTP as the protocol to communicate. And then it uses XML as the basis for that. That's the mechanism of exchange, basically, to move that data back and forth. SFTP and FTPS are secure methods for communicating between client and server. The difference being how they're used. One uses SSH, the other uses SSL. And again, these are not your pre-runners. These are the more current, more secure methods that use encryption and tunneling protocols, etc., to make sure that that file transfer, FTP, is more secure than the old just FTP methods. HTTP and HTTPS are the methods, the protocols that are used for the Internet. So whenever you go out to your Internet Explorer, your data that you're moving back and forth, if you're sending out your credit card or if you're logging on to a website, these are all carried out using HTTP or HTTPS, which is a more secure method of doing so. Again, certificates and digital signatures are used in that message, in that method. SMTP, AS1, AS2, and AS3 are some things that we addressed just a minute ago. SMTP meaning Simple Mail Transport Protocol, and that is the ability to do email. AS1, again, was the precursor to AS2, and the application statement 1 also did email, whereas AS2 and AS3 do other types of communication, HTTP and FTP respectively. AS2 and AS3 then use, as I said before, certificates and digital signatures to ensure non-repudiation and more secure communications. RosettaNet then is you could call it a flavor of XML, but it's really more sophisticated than that. RosettaNet uses XML as the basis for the messages. They're sent back and forth. And it is a standardized methodology. So if you have a particular type of business document, it prescribes this is the layout of that data. However, it doesn't end there. It also prescribes the requirements of the relationships between that document and corresponding documents. Let me give an example. To put it in EDI terms, if I send you today an invoice, an 810, I may require of you a receipt, a 997. The relationship between those two transactions, I send you this, you send me that, is also prescribed by RosettaNet. So communications in that form, as well as other free format and many other standardized XML layouts, is also supported in this product. Then there's IBM Sterling Connect Direct. You've heard MFT, Managed File Transfer. This is the backbone of that. This is a product that is extremely mature, has been around for a very long time, to my knowledge has never been hacked, and is used, as I said, for the basis for that managed file transfer. Okay, if we could go to the next slide, please. Here we have a couple of pictures to show you on this slide some of the things that I was talking about. For example, when you set up AS2 communications, one of the first things you're going to do is pick up the phone and talk to somebody on the other end. Your trading partner, you're going to say, send me your specifications. Once you have that information, all of their information such as their user ID and password, the types of encryption they're going to use, their certificates, the website address, etc. All the information that's needed, you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to build an AS2 profile that defines that trading partner. This is the beginning of that, what you're seeing at the top of this slide. So that's how you get started setting up AS2 communications with one of your trading partners. The bottom of this slide shows instead another method of communication. This one, FTP. So if you've ever manually gone to a Unix prompt and typed in the commands to start up an FTP session and then do a get to pull some data, or a put to send some data to your trading partner, you can see in here a business process. And Brad talked about this briefly earlier. We'll talk about this a good deal more in this presentation. But a business process that does the things I just described. It starts the session, does a get, does a put, and then it ends it. And you can see that little flow there. And we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So here we're talking about business process management. What I alluded to just a minute ago is this graphical process modeling tool, or the graphical process modeler. In here then, of course, you also have the execution engine that runs that thing that you just built, the business process. And the layered modeling allows you to have that visual representation, and as well as the code that occurs behind the scenes. And we use these things. So it actually allows for a very user-friendly method of building and controlling things. Now, this is one area that very much distinguishes this product and this solution from the standalone EDI solutions. Now, I'll touch on this briefly, but I'll come back to it later. When you do EDI, and you do it with a basic EDI package, it does these things, and that's pretty much all it does. It's programmed to do this, and I'll give you an example. Most EDI translators and packages do this. It receives data via some form of communication. It translates that data or transforms it from, for example, if it's an inbound transmission, it translates it from an EDI, for example, a purchase order, translates it into a file that you then send to your application system. You may turn around and send back a 997 or not. And in order to make all this happen, you have to set up a trading partner. So you've got your data, you've got your map, you've got your communications, You've got the EDI data layout, you've got your application data layout, and then you've got some kind of audit trail, something you can look at in the system to say, yes, I processed this data. But that's about it. It's pre-programmed, it's fixed. This is what it does, that's all it does. This, on the other hand, allows you to do much more. The business process management tool allows you to build, maintain, control things to a much deeper level. And if we'll go to the next slide, I'll show you some of what I'm talking about here. Here then is an example of a business process, and as you can see, it looks very much like a Visio diagram. So you have all these icons that you drag from the left side of the screen and put it into that white space, the working space, and then you connect the dots, and you can see the little flow with the arrows there that allow you to visually represent what's going on with this process. This is very handy for a couple of reasons. One, and as a consultant, I see this all the time, one of the things that companies need from me is not only to solve the problem for them, but to make it useful to them when I'm gone. So when you have a system like this, because it is so intuitive, you can easily document what the process is doing, and others can come behind you and maintain it, or go back later and understand what is there. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the sophistication of this. It is sophisticated, and it can be very complex. It does take a new set of skills. The old mapping skills that you have from a standalone EDI product are not going to translate directly into the skills here. You need to have the skills that work with this. But because it is visual, it is very user-friendly and rather easy to learn. And so you have these things that are very reusable, and part of the methodology is to build components that you build it once, and then it's used for a variety of different systems or processes so that you can then reuse those components without having to reinvent the wheel every time. Next slide, please. This is a little deeper look at that. Again, you can see the flow that I'm talking about, and I sort of did an exploded view. This is just a business process I threw together the other day. This allowed me to test XPath, and XPath is just a method for accessing XML data. Sort of like looking at, go to this directory, then to this directory to find this file. That is what I was testing in this, and so I built this simple flow, and one of the icons there, the one with the little blue square around it, shows below that the code that allowed me to say, this is what I want it to do. And then at the bottom of the slide, the graphical modeler turned this into another flavor of XML, and this was decided back when the product was born that we would go with what's called BPML, a standard that the W3C had adopted for this. Business process modeling language, then, is the code behind the scenes that this graphical representation generates for you, and that then is used eventually to execute the process. Next slide, please. Once you have your business processes built, you then go into the main administration interface. This, again, is similar to other screens that we've seen. This one, though, is specific to business process management, and here you can run that graphical process modeler. You can create new processes. You can list the ones that exist, and you can go out and maintain them. Next slide, please. I think earlier Brad was talking about some statistic, something about the chief supply chain officers. 70% of them cited that a lack of visibility had a significant impact on their supply chains. Well, once you have those processes built and once they're running in your system, this slide shows you an example of the audit trail that you have to see those processes, to see when they ran. As you can see just right of the middle of the screen here, you get the start and the end time for these things. You can see the state. Some of them have completed. Some of them are still active. On the left, the extreme left, you can see the green lights, which means that they work fine. There'd be a red light if there was a problem. Of course, you've got the name of the process, and you can come up with your own names so that it makes sense to your organization. You typically would come up with naming conventions anyway, but these things then help you to identify exactly what's going on in your system at the times that they run. Notice the parent-child column, the arrows that point up and down. So you can see that one process can call another process, et cetera, et cetera. And in some cases, there are no parents. It's just a standalone process. So this is that visibility into the system. Next slide, please. Okay, now, this is directly relative to the standalone products for EDI. And in fact, the mapper that is used here came from one of our previous EDI systems. I keep saying "our" because I refer to my time when I was working at Sterling Commerce at that time. This mapper, and I've used a lot of mappers. I've worked with a lot of mappers, not just the Sterling products, and this is my favorite one. It is very intuitive. It is very powerful, very flexible, and yeah, I've rarely, if ever, met a challenge that I couldn't meet using this product. It allows you to do all the traditional EDI stuff, you know, X12, Edifact, Tradecoms if you're in England, VDA if you're in Germany, CII, Japan, et cetera, et cetera. But it also handles XML, not just your own stuff that you make up, but the standards, and some of them are listed there. The process model allows you to use XSLT if you need to transform those XML documents. This even supports WTX translations. So we're going to talk a little bit about this mapper here in just a minute, but also note that besides using and handling extremely large size files, it can handle HIPAA rules, levels 1 through 6 if you need that. Next slide, please. Okay, here is, again, just a picture of what you see when you go to build a map. Now, the map, again, is really just a program, if you will. It's not a program per se because it's a graphical representation. I'll show you more about that in a minute. But it allows you, as you can see, to create it based on all those standards we just talked about. That's the top part of the slide there. And in this case, I selected EDI to begin the process as my input format. And then, of course, I can choose X12, ODET, UCS, Edifact, etc. I can also choose other types of formats, for example, XML, positional, flat file. I can even do database connectivity. So next slide, please. This then is a picture of what a map looks like. Now, this is a very simple map. This is one I threw together in about literally 10 minutes. Here I'm showing on the input side, that's the left side of the screen, an inbound EDI purchase order, an 850. And I've mapped, that is, I've linked it to an XML layout, again, that I just made up. I came up with my own layout. And the XML format is on the output side. I created a few elements in there. I called one PO number, another one PO date. And you can see this mapper can be and often is as simple as connect the dots. You literally draw a line from the input side to the output side and say, take this from here and put it in there. A lot of what is done in mapping is done this way. Now, that's not all it does. It does a lot more than that. There are basically 3 types of rules. Simple links, which is what you see here. There are standard rules, which are sort of a canned, predefined list of functions. And then there is the programming language, the extended rules that allow you to do very sophisticated, very powerful functions. And again, those are used quite often to do things such as sorting, using indices, and dealing with loops, string functions, a lot of very, very powerful things that you can do in this mapper. Next slide, please. Once you have your map built, then just like you do with many other objects, such as business processes or trading partner envelopes, you go in and maintain them through the interface. In this case, we're showing where you can set up maps and deal with those, and that becomes your library. Next slide, please. And when I talk about a library, I'll talk more about that in a little bit here as far as versioning goes. We alluded to trading partner management a little bit ago, and some of the issues that are important to that are shown here on the screen. what I'd like to do is dive into and show you some of the things that you can do with this, not just set up trading partners and their envelopes and certificates and such, but maintain those items, move them from one system to another, such as a test system to the QA environment, etc. Next screen, please. Here you have a picture of a set of envelopes. Here you have 3 levels: the interchange, functional group, and transaction set for an inbound purchase order. That's at the top of the slide. At the bottom, then, you can see where you could set up certificates. So if you have those certificates and you're going to be doing communications with these trading partners, this is where you would set up those things. Next slide, please. There are also the capabilities in this product to do extensions and customization. Listed here, it shows you some of the tools that allow you to do so. Now, having said that, and this is very sophisticated, very powerful, one thing I would say is that I've rarely seen people ever need to do this. There is a dizzying array of adapters already built into the system, and rarely have I ever seen the need to do this. However, should you need to do so, you can develop your own adapters, and this is how you would go about doing so. Next slide, please. There are, of course, adapters for various enterprise applications, such as SAP, Oracle, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, the Sterling products, etc. There are messaging platforms that, that this product communicates with and can handle. Listed here are a few of them: Websphere, TIBCO, WebMethods, etc. And then there are technology adapters, such as the JDBC, command line, and file system adapters. The JDBC allowing you to communicate with databases, and the file system, well, doing what it sounds like, allowing you to communicate with, that is, read from and write to the file system itself. Very commonly used. Next slide, please. Here you can see a picture of the SAP adapter and some of the things that you can use this for. Next slide. System maintenance and troubleshooting, an issue near and dear to my heart. You're going to need a place to go to look at and troubleshoot and maintain the system. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of that here for a minute. You can, for instance, set up your archiving. You may have criteria that says keep the data on the system for a week or a month, and then archive it. And then at some point you may need to restore it. This is where you would do that sort of thing. Next slide. You may need to move objects. So you test all your stuff, build it, test it, and when you're ready to move it to QA, and then from there, someday move it to production. The import and export function allows you to do that. Next slide. And then, of course, there's troubleshooting. And you can see a number of different options here, such as looking at your business process queues, threads, adapters, and in this case, we've got the database usage. If you go to the next slide, you'll see what I'm talking about. It gives you a variety of tools to see what's going on with your system and maintain it, troubleshoot it when you need to do so. All right, next slide. There is the mobility app. So on your phone, should you be on the road and you need to look at your system, take a look at things, fix things, restart them, etc., you can do so. And then finally, the next slide. There are a whole list of other products and services that are available. Some listed here on the screen, the Sterling File Gateway. And next slide, please. As well as the network, community manager, invoicing, fax services, web forms, etc. Next slide. And don't forget that this product also works with Websphere. And at this point, what I'd like to do is turn this back over to Brad to finish up.
All right. Thank you, Herb. I appreciate that. And I apologize for the time, but we wanted to exhaustively go through the business case for a comprehensive integration suite, as well as the technical look into the IBM integration suite products in order to let you both look at the theoretical and the actual. So thank you, Herb. I appreciate that. Briefly, before we move on to questions, I wanted to just review this quick slide to let you know that Remedy can assist clients in the course of determining, standalone EDI systems, comprehensive integration suites. We assist clients both in software discovery, software acquisition, and their renewal needs. Once acquired in a pre- or post-purchase capacity, we assist clients with their architecture of the integration suite and design, which is a very important upfront blueprint to designing your integration infrastructure and how various plugins and components will work. Proceeding then usually in the course of an engagement to installation and configuration of the solutions. Oftentimes transitioning then to a conversion or a migration project where we will help a client move their integrations from a given tool of choice to an integration suite. So that's a project often which we are involved in. And then very specific to the IBM Integration Suite products, we offer optimal use engagements. Sterling Commerce, pre-IBM acquisition, offered many adapters and components in an a la carte manner. And as IBM, many of these components are now available as part of the integration suite purchase price. So we offer an optimal use engagement for clients so we can look at client challenges to see if these accessory items that come as part of the product can be deployed into the production environment for the client, and thereby enhancing the return on investment of owning the IBM integration suite of products. Lastly, we do system, next to last, system health checks and performance tuning for underperforming systems. We often get calls and are able to help clients with that. Of course, there are traditional project and staff supplementation, helping clients with integrations where their environment is already designed, in place, in play, and there are either projects around getting folks implemented, or we play a staff supplementation role. Now I think we'll take a look at a few of the questions that have been submitted via chat. There are several that, based on the time and the time currently and the time involved to answer those questions, as I mentioned, I think we'll take offline and include in a write-up out to folks. But I believe we have one or two that we'll try to entertain before we wrap today.
Now, I'll jump in here real quick, Brad. And Herb, if you're still available and unmuted on the line, the question I think we'll grab from the list comes in. Does the mapping tool provide segment and element definitions? And a follow-up to that question, is the current mapping tool available in Sterling?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. First part of the question, yes, it does provide segment and element definitions. In fact, one of the things I like about this mapper is that once you have the mapper on your, for instance, your laptop like I do, you can then basically carry around with you the EDI standards for every version and every transaction set all the way down, not only to the segment and element level, but also to things such as the conditional relationships between those elements. So yes, it gives you all of that. What was the second part of the question?
I just referenced is the most current mapping tool available for not only B2B Integrator, but the other Genran standalone products.
Yes, they're available.
At this point, I think we've kind of run over our hour-long. We do have several other questions that were submitted, and as Brad mentioned, we'll include those in a follow-up and send those questions and answers to those to the group. At this point, we'd like to wrap up today's webinar. I'd like to thank Brad Lotz and Herb Saxon for their presentations today, and our contact information is listed here on the slide. If there are any follow-up questions you'd like to take directly with any of the members of today's presentation, or including myself, feel free to reach out to us directly. Again, thank you very much for joining today, and have a great day. Thank you.